Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Global. We'll get you top stories from India and the region. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh, and for news from the rest of the world, I'm joined by my colleague from London, Julia Chapman. Julia, good to see you. What stories are you tracking today?
It's 11:30 a.m. in London and 12:30 p.m. across Central Europe. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, Hungary votes to allow Sweden into NATO. The Kremlin dismisses new Western sanctions, and farmers descend on Brussels. But first, the headlines.
Amidst the Israel-Hamas truce deal negotiations, Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammad Shatai steps down. Hungary all set to ratify Sweden's NATO accession. Stockholm abandoned its non-alignment policy for greater safety amidst Russia-Ukraine conflict. Prime Minister Narendra Modi positions India as global textile powerhouse, launches Bharat Tex 2024, celebrating the mantra of vocal for local. An Israeli delegation will depart this week to Qatari capital Doha to continue talks over Gaza truce deal. This comes after talks in Paris over the weekend, which was attended by Chief of Israel's spy agency, Mossad, and Domestic Security Service, Shin Bet, along with mediators from the United States, Qatar, and Egypt. The United States said the countries have agreed on basic contours of a hostage deal. Another round of talks is also likely to be held in Cairo. However, there is no confirmation regarding the same. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Sunday said it was not clear yet whether a hostage deal would materialize from the ongoing talks. He added that Hamas needed to come down to a reasonable situation for a deal. Netanyahu's remarks came as Israeli Security Cabinet is expected to approve military plans for Rafah, including evacuation of over 1 million Palestinian civilians sheltering there. Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammad Shatai, meanwhile, said he was resigning to allow for formation of a broad consensus among Palestinians about the political arrangements following the conflict in Gaza. The move comes amid growing United States pressure on President Mahmoud Abbas to shake up the Palestinian Authority. However, his resignation is yet to be accepted by President Abbas, who may ask him to stay on as caretaker PM until a permanent replacement is appointed. And DD India correspondent Sarah Coates joins us live from Tel Aviv. Sarah, what is the direction in which talks are headed over hostage release and ceasefire?
Hi, Shubhendu. There's certainly quiet optimism that some sort of a deal may be achieved. We do understand that this Israeli delegation will actually be in the Qatari capital of Doha today. What they will be discussing are the technical issues surrounding parts of this deal, like which hostages will be released and which Palestinian prisoners could be set free as part of this deal. According to the United States, progress has been made on this deal in the wake of these talks that were happening in Paris over the weekend. The US says that an understanding was reached by these mediation groups on the broad contours of this deal, while a source close to these talks said that it could see around 40 Israeli hostages released, hundreds of Palestinian prisoners, with a break in fighting for around 6 weeks. Now, we do understand, according to this same source, that Hamas's stance on all of this, especially the timeline and the pause in fighting, has been softened. It is now reportedly willing to accept that there would not be an immediate ceasefire, that this is something that could potentially be discussed a little further down the track. And mediators are certainly hoping to get these warring parties to come to some sort of an agreement over the next few days, given that Israel has basically laid out a deadline for an operation into the southern Gazan city of Rafah by around Ramadan, which starts here around March 10, if these Israeli hostages are not released by then. So certainly work continuing right around the clock to see some sort of a deal secured.
And Sarah, amidst these crucial developments, Palestine Prime Minister has resigned. What does it mean for the Palestinian Authority and President Abbas?
It certainly opens the door for these reforms that we've been hearing about from the United States for a very long time. It has been saying that it wants to see a revitalised PA take control in Gaza post-war, but certainly there is still a long way to go, as you did mention. The Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, he is yet to accept the resignation of Mohammed Shtayyeh. And the Palestinian Authority is certainly seen as extremely corrupt by the United States and the rest of the West, while it's also deeply unpopular in the West Bank itself. A recent poll showed that around 60% of Palestinians who responded actually believe that the PA should be dissolved. Even worse figures there for the President Mahmoud Abbas. 92% of those responders believe that he should stand down immediately. I'll give you a statement of what we heard from Mohammed Shtayyeh just a little earlier when he addressed that cabinet meeting this morning. He said, "I see the next stage and its challenges require new governmental and political arrangements that take into account the new reality in Gaza and the need for Palestinian consensus based on Palestinian unity." So as I mentioned, still a long way to go, but it certainly does seem as though this opens the door there for some reform.
Sarah, thank you for joining us with those updates. Moving on, Hungary expected to ratify Sweden's NATO accession. Julia Chapman is in London, gives us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Julia, last hurdle really for Sweden to get NATO membership.
That's right, Shubendu. Hungary's parliament is set to ratify Sweden's NATO accession today, paving the way for the historic step by the Nordic country to join the bloc. 2 years ago, Sweden applied to join the North Atlantic Treaty Organization in a major shift in policy. After Turkey overcame its objections, Hungary was the last NATO member holding out on Sweden's application. Hungary's Prime Minister met his Swedish counterpart on Friday and said they had managed to rebuild trust. Sweden joining NATO will help bolster forces in northwestern Europe on the Baltic Sea, a waterway which is shared with Russia and which is home to the ports of 8 states, including Germany. Sweden has been operating submarines in the Baltic Sea since 1904. The country hopes its submarines will give NATO a strategic edge in the region. Stockholm says it's aiming to spend the NATO target of 2% of its GDP on defence by 2026 in order to increase its military capacity across land, sea and air. Now, DD India correspondent Pablo Gutierrez joins us live now from Budapest. Pablo, why did Hungary take so long to bring Sweden's bid to a vote?
Well, in just a few hours, Sweden could become the 32nd member state of NATO. And to understand why this has taken so long, we need to look at the relationship between these two countries, a relationship that has not been so warm. One example of that occurred 3 years ago when the European Council decided to sue Hungary over a law that they said discriminated LGBTQ plus people and minorities. Sweden supported that law. Since then, its politicians have become opponents, boisterous opponents of Prime Minister Viktor Orban and his administration over what they say is the erosion of the rule of law in this country. Now, Hungarian politicians from the Fidesz faction, this is the ruling party, this is Orban's party, they have hit back and they've said in numerous occasions that it is precisely these criticisms why they have not brought the Sweden's aspirations to vote earlier. Now, for all of this time, approximately 18 months, they have insisted on a face-to-face meeting between the Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson and Prime Minister Viktor Orban. And as you said in your introduction, they finally got their wish last Friday. After that meeting, both leaders said that they had inked a brand new deal, a defense deal, to bolster Hungary's air defenses. Now, to understand the Hungarian military, we have to look at their capacities. They have less than 50 aircraft in their fleet. Most of them are carriers, and they only have 12 fighter jets. These are Gripen fighter jets that were leased to Hungary many years ago by the Swedes. These are Swedish planes. So now they're going to get 4 more planes, and that is seen as a win domestically. Viktor Orban and his party needed to take something out of this deal, even though the Prime Minister said that the deal with Sweden, there was no cause and effect between the deal and the decision to bring the NATO bid to vote. We know that Hungary has been under a lot of pressure, not only by the EU members, but also by the United States of America. Just a week ago, a bipartisan delegation of U.S. senators came to Hungary to pressure this government and to basically reiterate the importance of bringing Sweden into the NATO fold, and that could take place in less than 3 hours now.
Pablo Gutierrez in Budapest, thanks for joining us. Well, as Hungary is set to ratify Sweden's NATO membership, DD India's Jessica Taneja caught up with Sweden's ambassador to India, who said the two nations will continue to strengthen their defence cooperation.
Hungary is going to ratify Sweden's membership to NATO. India and Sweden have had, as you said, relationship since independence and much before that, since the non-alignment movement. How does that impact the relationship between the two, especially in defense cooperation? Does it change anything, or perhaps we could see more in that direction?
I think we will see more in that direction. I think that Sweden, once we become a NATO member, will be an even more interesting partner for India. We are here with the technology. We are not bringing technology only to India. We are co-creating technology with India. We are manufacturing, we are creating in this country. Make in India. It's in our DNA, and that's what we will continue to do, and you will see more of that.
The Kremlin has dismissed the newest Western sanctions against Moscow, introduced 2 years after the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Dmitry Peskov, the spokesperson for President Vladimir Putin, says Russia's economy has adapted to restrictions and that new sanctions were a self-inflicted blow against those that have introduced them. The latest sanctions include Russia's payment system Mir, various financial institutions, and those involved in sanctions evasion. Russian forces say they have warded off multiple attacks by Ukrainian troops in Avdiivka, Zaporizhia and Kupiansk. The Russians allegedly struck Ukrainian electronic warfare stations and intercepted multiple HIMARS rockets and drones, as well as 2 missiles launched by Ukraine over the Black Sea. Meanwhile, Ukraine said Russia launched a barrage of missiles in an overnight attack. Officials say Ukraine's air defenses destroyed 9 drones and 3 guided missiles over the Kharkiv and Dnipropetrovsk regions. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has claimed Russian forces are going to attempt another offensive against Ukraine in May, which he says his country is prepared for.
Russia will prepare counter-offensive actions in the beginning of summer or at the end of May. If they can, that is. They will prepare, we will prepare for their assault. Their assault that began on October 8th has not brought any results, I think. We from our side will prepare our plan and will counter their actions. The critical moments will be the elections in the United States, and only then we will understand what will happen in regards to this after the elections.
Denmark has dropped its investigation into the 2022 explosions on the Nord Stream pipelines, which carry Russian gas to Germany. A series of blasts occurred in Swedish and Danish waters in September 2022, releasing vast amounts of methane into the air. Officials in Copenhagen say they have concluded the pipelines were sabotaged, but they don't have the grounds to pursue a criminal case. Meanwhile, the Kremlin has said Denmark dropping its probe into the Nord Stream 2 pipeline explosions was close to absurd. Denmark's decision follows a similar one from neighbouring Sweden, which stopped investigating earlier this month and handed over evidence to German investigators. In Brussels, farmers are protesting to demand EU action on issues ranging from cheap supermarket prices to free trade deals. Farmers have dumped tyres and used tractors to block roads leading from the EU district to central Brussels. EU ministers are meeting to discuss the ongoing Europe-wide farming crisis and debate a new set of proposals aimed at easing the pressure. In response to weeks of protests, the EU has already weakened some parts of its flagship Green Deal environmental policies. That's it from me here in London. Back to you in the studio.
Julia, thank you for joining us with those updates. And we're heading for a short break, but still to come on DD India Global. South Korea's government has warned doctors to return to work or risk being punished for staging week-long protest. Spanish police arrests one of the most wanted French fugitives.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Reaffirming India's position as a global textile powerhouse, Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated Bharat Text 2024, drawing inspiration from 5F vision of the Prime Minister. The event has a unified farm to foreign via fibre, fabric and fashion focus, covering the entire textiles value chain. Bharat Text 2024 is built on the twin pillars of trade and investment with an overarching focus on sustainability. Earlier, Prime Minister Modi walked through an exhibition. The 4 days event features over 65 knowledge sessions, a dedicated pavilion on sustainability and circularity, and in the heart, fashion presentations. The pavilion gives opportunity to the digitally empowered artisans of India who can sell their handcrafted products at India Handmade portal. And Secretary General of Bharat Text 2024 will provide biggest source center to all the leaders in textile sector globally as India hosts the Textile Expo.
This is really a moment of proud for all of us in the textile sector that a global textile expo has come up in India. This is been totally curated by the Indian exporters. Over 2,000 exhibitors are participating, more than 20 lakh square feet area we have covered. More important that it is being organized in both the venue, that is at Bharat Mandapam and Yashobhumi of Delhi. Most important part is that India is coming up as one of the biggest sourcing center for all over the world. So far, so on, the exporter used to participate in the various exhibitions in Europe and the other part of the world. Now this is the first time when the SME sector will be able to demonstrate their product within their country and also showcase their strength of India in textile sector.
India's Prime Minister also laid foundation stone, inaugurated and dedicated to the nation around 2,000 rail infrastructure projects via video conferencing. Prime Minister Modi laid the foundation stone for redevelopment of over 550 railway stations under Amrit Bharat Station Scheme. Other projects include redevelopment of stations, 1,500 road overbridges and underpasses. These projects will reduce congestion, enhance safety and connectivity, improve capacity and efficiency of rail travel.
दशकों तक रेलवे को हमारे यहाँ की स्वार्थ भरी राजनीति का शिकार होना पड़ा, लेकिन अब भारतीय रेलवे देशवासियों के लिए ईज ऑफ ट्रैवल का मुख्य आधार बन रही है। जिस रेलवे के हमेशा घाटे में होने का रोना रोया जाता था, आज वो रेलवे परिवर्तन के सबसे बड़े दौर से गुजर रही है।
Shifting focus to Asia Pacific, South Korea's government has warned the doctors to return to work or risk being punished for staging a week-long protest. Country's Vice Health Minister said the doctors might face suspension of their licenses or other legal repercussions if they do not return to work by the end of February. In South Korea, 2/3 of the nation's residents and intern doctors had walked off the job to protest government plan to increase medical school admissions. The association has requested the government to cancel the plan, saying the higher medical school admissions will only lower the overall medical education level in South Korea and won't solve the medical resources imbalance. In a latest development in Pakistan, Maryam Nawaz, a senior leader of Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz Party, became the first woman chief minister of Punjab province. Maryam secured 220 votes in the 371 seats provincial assembly. The Punjab Assembly Speaker announced the election results that was earlier boycotted by opposition Sunni Council Party. Meanwhile, former Prime Minister Imran Khan once again thrown the leadership dice for Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf by nominating barrister Gohar Ali Khan for the party's top post. Gohar previously secured the position of PTI chairman with the backing of Khan in the intra-party elections in December last year. Let's now turn to other stories making news around the world. Germany said it will be changing laws to allow carbon capture and storage technology in certain CO2-intensive industrial sectors as it aims to become carbon neutral by the year 2045. Spanish police arrested one of the most wanted fugitives in France who was believed to be the main member of the Martial clan and involved in drug trafficking. He escaped during a police operation against him in March 2023 in France. India's legendary singer and Padma awardee Pankaj Udhas passed away at the age of 72 after prolonged illness on Monday. The veteran singer is renowned for his ghazals such as Chitti Aayi Hai and Chandi Jaisa Rang.
चांदी जैसा रंग है तेरा सोने जैसे बाल ऐसे बोलो कि दिल का अफसाना दिल सुने और निगाह दोहराए सब कुछ हमें खबर है नसीहत न कीजिए.
What a loss to the world of music. But that's all in this edition of DT India Global. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also find us online at dtindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DT India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DT India Global. Namaskar.